What is a paradigm? Well, it's similar to asking the question, who am I? You see, a paradigm is the window, the frame through which you see the world. A paradigm is the glasses or the eyes through which you view the world. It consists of any individual's values and beliefs. But let's start at another place. If you look at me, what would you see? You would see a white person. You would see a male. You would see somebody who is 44 years old, of a certain height. These are things which we call my fixed identity. I cannot change my skin color. I cannot change my height. I can't change my age. And except if I had a lot of money, I can't change my gender. You see, this is my fixed identity, and this is the beginning of me. Fixed identity are the things which a person has which you cannot change. The second part of me is my collective identity. These are the groups I choose to belong to. It could be my church. It could be a cultural group. It could be the community where I live. Collective identities are usually chosen identities. But then there's a third thing, and that's my paradigm. You see, if you judge me on what you see here and how I associate with the people in the world around me, you don't get the essence of me. To really understand me, you need to understand the values and beliefs that drive me, and that's paradigm. To understand paradigm best, one needs to divide them into defining factors and manifestations. The defining factors are the things that create the window through which you view the world, and the manifestations are the things that happen because of these defining factors. Firstly, there's the defining factors, the things that define paradigm. Firstly, there's the beliefs. In other words, the things that you hold as true and that you are not prepared to negotiate. Secondly, there's your values. These are the measuring concepts that you use to evaluate the people and the things around you. In other words, your beliefs define your truth, and your values create the experience of what you have with people and things around you. Then there are the manifestations, the things that manifest or happen because of the beliefs that you hold and the values that you demonstrate. Such manifestations are mostly behavioral and could include habits, lingo, body language, attire, etc., etc. Manifestations come out in form of assumptions. We have certain beliefs, we evaluate the people and the things around us in a certain way, and this formulates assumptions. Our assumptions leads to behavior. Our behavior is in the form of verbal and non-verbal expressions, and this is categorized as attitude. Following is a model which I've created, and I call it the construct of paradigm. The model is based on the fact that paradigm begins with a feeling, with inputs. It begins with the heart. It goes to the head and moves towards the hand. In other words, heart becomes mind, mind becomes hand. Feeling becomes thinking, thinking becomes behavior. Now, in the beginning of paradigm, there are the defining factors, the beliefs and the values. Now, it's an external environment that creates these beliefs and values, in the beginning in any way. I mean, take a 2-year-old, that you cannot ask a 2-year-old child, what are your beliefs or what are your values? In fact, even adults, the beliefs are very unconscious. I find very few adults who could tell me what their values and their beliefs are. People have to think about this. As you grow older, you start creating your own values and beliefs. This is why teenagers are such difficult people, because they have to find their own authority by rejecting the parents' authority. So they have to create their own belief and value system by rejecting that which is given to them, the parents. As you go through this growing up phase and you start defining your beliefs and values, principles start developing. Now, the principles is something that becomes conscious. When a value and a belief is going to consciousness, then we call it a principle. People might not be able to tell me what their beliefs are or what their values are, but most people would say, you know what, it's wrong if a child talks to an adult without respect. That's a principle. Or being late is not good. These are principles. These are conscious manifestations of that which happens in the unconscious mind. From these principles, we start creating our assumptions about the world and the people around us. And these manifest in non-verbal in behaviors, nonverbal expressions. These would be your body language, your lingo, the way that you move, your verbal expressions, the lingo which you use. You could see this in various cultures, and young people and older people in generations. They've got different lingo. Relations, how do you relate to the people in the world around you? Relatedness, how do people relate to you? And attitude. Now the question remains, can you change somebody's attitude? The answer, no, you can't. If you want to change attitude, you have to go back and readjust the beliefs and values which drive that attitude. The problem is never in the person. The problem is always in the beliefs and values that drive that person. And then again, the problem is what you make of it. This problem could be a problem from your paradigm, but not a problem from somebody else's paradigm. I've been in many conversations where people would say, well, these children are undisciplined, they do not listen to their parents, and they call all the people by the name. You go back a few years later, you find that the people who complained, their kids are now working for the kids who were, according to them, non-disciplined. There is no right and wrong, there's only conflict of paradigm. To illustrate this model, let's take a few examples. There's a young girl. She's 10 years old. She waits for her parents at school. They're always late when they pick her up, never on time. She is heartbroken by this and starts believing that, if you're late for an appointment, you don't love somebody. She feels neglected, and this leads to a belief system that neglect causes pain, and pain creates the value that, I'm not cared for and loved. This later in life leads to a principle that if you're late for an appointment or late for a meeting, you don't respect me. One day she becomes a manager at a workplace. People come late. Guess what? She sees them as not being respectful. Do you see how this manifestation of her belief systems or her principles and the assumptions that she makes on these principles was a result from a very young behavioral pattern that formed, a belief in a value system that's quite deep-rooted? Let's take another example. Here's a young man. His mother is a maid to a wealthy household. He grows up and he formulates this belief system that you never argue with people who have more money than you. And this has been endorsed from a very young age. He grows up and he goes and works for a company in Johannesburg. Getting to this company, he works for a boss who believes that if people do not challenge her and if people do not confront her with realities, they're no good, they're dead wood. Of course, our man has a lot of good ideas, but he never challenges his boss because he simply believes that, this is not respect. What happens? She's going to see him as dead wood and she's going to fire him. Is he really dead wood? No. This is a class of paradigm. 99% of all conflict in the world, 99.9% of all conflict in the world are conflict of values and beliefs. In other words, conflict of paradigm.